Hey, evening. How's it going? Just getting ready for my nightly gaming a little later. Uh, finishing up my chores, whatnot. Um, just wanted to talk a little bit about the art of debate because for anybody who knows me, y'all know that I friggin' love to debate or to argue if you want to bring it down to those terms. I really love having discussions. To me, it's really important to have a lot of the discussions that I bring up or that I join into because I feel that they're important issues. That at least they're important to me. Now, other people may feel like they're less relevant to their lives, and that's of course completely fair. What's important to one person doesn't have to be important to another person. There are some things that I feel morally that we should all have, that we should all care about. Right? That's one of the reasons that I signed up to be a a member of the local government in my area. And thankfully I was voted in, and I hope that I'm doing a good enough job for everybody, and I will work on keeping that up and you know pushing for more transparency, pushing to get things to where they need to be, and trying to get answers for people when they ask questions. And sometimes even when they don't ask questions, I'm going to try and get answers and get that information out there so people can be more informed. But I want to talk about debate because right now on the internet and in real life, obviously, we have so many debates going on constantly. And I think one of the things that gets lost in modern discussions is how to remove pride, number one, from a debate, and how to stay on topic in a debate. Um, if somebody has a point that they're trying to make about a specific subject, you can't like try to segue into a whole other subject that has nothing to do with that subject. If you're going to discuss things, you have to discuss what it is that's actually being brought up, right? Bringing up something else. Now, I can see like people trying to make analogs, analogies, as it were, trying to make metaphors, trying to make associations so that people can better understand things from different perspectives, or you're trying to make something a little bit easier to digest. But just remember to just because you create a metaphor doesn't mean that the metaphor or analogy is going to be accurate. Um, it's easy to try to break things down in the way that you understand them, but a big problem that we all have, myself included, sometimes, is that we want to assume that what we know is accurate. That so we want to break things down for people to understand things in the way that we understand them. That doesn't mean that our understanding is the correct understanding or is accurate in all aspects. We have to make sure that we understand that we are all fallible. Um, I'm sure we all see this constantly, frequently, is that people will say, well, whatever news media channel you watch, you're obviously brain rotted by them. You're just repeating all the same lines. I've had that thrown at me like dozens of times. And the thing is, I don't watch news, like hardly ever. Occasionally I'll watch like John Oliver or Jon Stewart. But for the most part, I'm not watching any news. I will go and look things up. And when I do, um, like somebody was like, "Oh, you use Google as your source." Well, Google's not a news site, my guy. It doesn't have a source of information. This was brought up because I challenged somebody using ChatGPT with no sources other than just the base information supplied by ChatGPT, and he didn't understand the information that he was even portraying or the nuance that he was missing. It was something to do with the military and about different mental uh, say, I don't want to use the term disorders, but that's the only word I can think of off the top of my head. But like bipolar disorder and major depression disorders, PTSD, I guess are all kind of disorders. So it's not an untoward word there. But it was a whole list of them, and ADHD, things of that nature. And he was saying that these are all things that can that are eliminating or will make it so that you cannot join the servers. And I was like, well, yes, they can prevent you from joining the service. However, that does not mean that just because you have them that you will not be able to join the service. Number one, there's varying degrees of severity within many of those disorders. And as such, many people with those disorders can not only just get through everyday life, but they can absolutely sign up and serve. Um, if they doctor said it was severe enough to a degree, there's still a potential waiver for those people to get in. People get in on waivers all the time. I can't remember exactly what the lowest score you're supposed to have to be able to get into the Marine Corps was. I think it was like 32 or something like that. It was crazy low. Um, and it may have changed. I don't know. Things change all the time in the government. That's just how things work. But you could get an ASVAB waiver. There's supposed to be no drug charges on your record to be able to enlist. But people get drug waivers all the time to get in. There's supposed to be no tolerance, zero tolerance policy for people who are in the service. But people get busted in the service for different drug activities, and they end up still in the service years later. So it's not like any single situation is disqualifying in and of itself. There's severities, there's nuances, there's people who will pull for you. They will look at your history of who you are as a person, and they give people opportunities. So saying that somebody having a disorder is absolutely just disqualifying was just incorrect, and it was incorrectly related by this individual who didn't have firsthand knowledge. They'd never served, but they got this off ChatGPT, and so they were convinced that they absolutely understood all of the facts and relevance of all this information, which they didn't. And then, of course, he responded to me that I use Google for my sources. And I'm like, well, no, I don't understand what you're trying to relate, because Google itself does not give you information. It can give you prompts, I guess, for questions other people have asked. And sometimes it'll give you like a snippet of information at the top. And usually that will come with a link, and you can click on the link to go and find more information and to see the source of that information, whatever it may be. But I'm like, I don't use Google itself as if it's a newspaper. I use it as a search engine because that's what it is. Whether you use Bing, Google, Yahoo, yes, Yahoo still exists. I checked the other day. Uh, whatever search engine you use, there's still good sources out there. I don't care if you're using social media, as long as the individuals that you're getting the information from, or the sources that you're getting your information from, are good sources to a degree. Now, let me add to this. When we get information from a source, we still need to do a proper verification of that information. And that means you have to find it at several other sources, repeating it that way. And not copy paste. One thing you'll see if you do a lot of vetting is that a lot of sources may have the exact same basic information, and it will say, it'll have something attributing or accrediting like the AP or whatever press source that they got that from. Or sometimes you'll see one person, one journalist, or whatever you want to call them nowadays, because a lot of them aren't technically what I think a journalist would be classically described as. People writing opinion pieces, basically, is what a lot of these folks are. And they're not always going in and actually doing the journalism to get all the information. So, judge for yourself how you want to relate that. But these people, they publish the same piece on dozens of sites, because they're going to get paid from each site based on the number of clicks on there. So it's more profitable for them to publish that in as many different sites as they can. So you'll find some on Fox that are also on CNN, that are also on God knows how many other ones, NBC, whatever the case may be, Daily News, Daily Beast, The Hill. These guys are just posting to as many different sites as will allow them to post there. So just because you see an article in dozens of places doesn't mean that you're vetting that article, because if it's by the same dude or it's being accredited from the same source, it's still a single source of information. That does not give it any more bearing or credence. It does not help verify that it's accurate information. All right, so be careful with that. So using Any search engine to find information is fine. Using social media to find information is technically fine. What we haven't really done well is teach people how to figure out what's good information. Um, I know growing up, we were able to trust our encyclopedias. We were able to trust the majority of sources were considered very trustworthy. Not many people went, oh, well, you went to this source, so it's obviously, a bunch of crap, and we can't trust that source because it's more ideologically or politically one way or the other. That's just not the case. Um, so we have to be a little bit more careful when we're having these discussions and having these talks. Um, it's tough. It really is tough because we all want to be right. We all want to feel right, right? Um, and a big portion of this has to come with the caveat that we don't have all the information. We need to understand that we don't have all the information. People who are on the front lines don't always have all the information. People who are in the story don't necessarily even have all of the information, right? We've all been there where, there's something will happen and, you got a side of the story and somebody else has a different perspective of the story and somebody else has a different perspective of the story and somebody else has a different, so everybody sees the story differently and they have different facts, even though, and everybody could be telling the truth in so far as they understand it. That doesn't mean that the truths are going to align or agree. So you have to have that as well in your head. And the thing is, like, if you get more information or more facts and you refuse to accept them, knowing that that's good information, um, that's an ego thing. To really be a person who's dedicated to truth, in fact, you have to take the ego out of it. The ego's got to get set aside. And I know that's tough because part of the whole point of having a lot of debates is to prove your point. But we're not on like a clinical debate stage where we're getting pointed or something. We're not going to walk home with a grade or a Letterman's vest or something because we won debates online. Nobody gives a shit. The only thing that we can hope to gain by having these debates online is that we influence some of the people who may happen upon the debate, and they might read through it and they may see some information that they didn't have before, and we may influence them a little bit. You're not going to change minds 99% of the time. That's not the goal. It shouldn't be the goal. If you think that having a debate is going to just flip somebody's mind like a light switch or something, and they're going to go, oh shit, you got me with that one. That one point I'd never heard of before, and now I'm just going to change everything about how I think, how I vote, whatever the case may be. It's just not going to happen. Most people have heard pretty much any point for the most part that you make. So if they're willing to have those arguments, a lot of the times, th- th- hopefully they've heard a lot of the points you're going to make. Now, it doesn't always happen that way. Or sometimes they just don't think about things. That people don't think things through. Most people give things very small amounts of thought power. They don't dedicate a lot of time to really thinking through things. And that's just their life. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You have to devote your energy in your life to the things that you care about and are passionate about. And if politics or philosophies or whatever the case may be just aren't your bag, that's cool. That's fine. That is what it is. Other people are going to devote their time to it, and they'll hopefully they'll take care of it for you. And when you have questions, hopefully you can ask them, and you give them the gravity or the weight that they're deserving of. Now you can find people who are going to hopefully align more with your thoughts and whatnot, but at the same time, we need to check our egos a bit when we're determining how we think about things and whether or not it's more important to find things that align with what we believe or what we want to believe or what our opinions already are. It's less important for that. If we're going to be good people and honest people about this, if we're going to have integrity, it's more important to be able to find out facts that we didn't know and let that influence us. I had somebody tell me today that I was an anti-science person, which is that was the first for me. I don't think anybody's ever told me before that I was an anti-science kind of person. Anybody who knows me at all knows that I love science. I've built all my computers for the last 20 years. I mean, I was a crypto person in the military working on the encrypted emails, uh, classified networks, encrypted communications. Um, I was a, I mean, I've done nothing but work with multiple levels of sciences for a long, long time. I'm the guy who got in trouble legitimately surfing the CERN website. CERN, for those of you who don't know, CERN is a physics. It's a well, it's where the Large Hadron Collider is. It's a particle physics lab where they collide particles. For those of you who don't understand what that is, it's basically they have a giant ring underneath the ground that's covering, well, over there countries. Over here, it would probably cover several states. We have one in Illinois as well. Um, and a particle collider, just we examine things that look like what happened in the Big Bang. We try to kind of replicate that force, and we're trying to look at the primal forces of nature. We break it down. That's how we, I learn more about antimatter and all these subatomic particles, and that's how we found the Higgs boson. And we're revolutionizing our understanding of energy and the primal forces, and it's helped us do leaps and bounds in our technology across the fields. But yeah, when I was in the service, I was I was checking out some really cool particle collision maps, and I was really digging into different stuff about particle physics. And I got yelled at by my master gunnery sergeant because I wasn't checking out Basic Math for Marines, which is a pamphlet that you can do to get points to go to the next rank. We have those. You can only do so many pamphlets to get so many points to go to the next rank. You can get them all done, but you can only apply so many. And it's really not going to change shit if you have 400 of them done, because one, only so many points are going to apply, and two, there's only so many positions that open up in ranks at time, and you're just gonna have to wait for your turn and whether or not they think that you're one of the people who should move up. It's just like any other kind of career in that regard, except for now you have little pamphlets that you can do. But I had done all these little booklets like really early on. I had done a ton of them because it was easy. So why wouldn't I? Uh, but the look on the Master Gun's face when I told him what it was and tried to explain it to him, that I had had all my work done, that I had all those pamphlets done, and was trying to explain to him the stuff, like he looked, one, embarrassed, and two, kind of lost and embarrassed that he caught himself and knew that immediately that he was out of his element, and that what I was doing was a little bit more advanced than that. Um, my area was tucked away, it was clean, everything was taken care of, my job was taken care of. I didn't have anything else to do for the next half an hour, and there was really no reason to yell at me. So he apologized, and he had the modesty to walk away at that point, and let me return to it. But yeah, no, I love science. So for somebody to say that I was anti-science because it didn't match up with what they believed was the science regarding the issue, was just funny to me. And it was an issue of psychology. So one of the things that you have to understand about psychology is that there's conflicting views on psychologists all the time, and you can ascribe to one view or another. Obviously, there's Jungian and Freudian for classic psychology. They're very conflicting at many aspects. That doesn't necessarily make anyone right or anyone wrong. It's just different ways of viewing, classic psychology. But um, to say the science proves this, it was absolutely untrue. And to say that somebody's anti-science because they didn't agree with your misunderstanding of it was just funny to me. But yeah, there's so many. Here's mistakes that I see. I see so many mistakes with debate. One is coming in hot off the press, just come in and people, they want to slam in there and they just want to go straight for the gut. They want to go straight with the razor and just stab and decimate and really hurt the feelings of whoever they're going to be debating with, because they think if they bully, if they claim that alpha male status or some shit, that the other person is just going to be like, I don't know, caught off guard or put on their heels, or they're just going to be so diminished as a person that they're just going to be like, you know what, I don't even want to have this discussion because I'm so scared of you. It's not going to happen online, dudes. I don't know if that has ever happened for anybody. I would think not. But it really, you're not winning a debate. You're just being a dick. Don't do that. You're putting stuff out there for people to see for the rest of their lives. Don't be that person. Another one that I see is when you call somebody out for being a dick. They immediately jump to victimhood, saying, "Well, I wasn't this person. You're the one that who's mean to me, and what you don't understand is that it's really hard for you straight white guys here because a lot, right? and throw in whatever victimhood you want. They're always once they're called out in front of people, and they know other people are looking on and going, wait, nah, this guy, he ain't right. They'll immediately jump to trying to play the victim card and trying to say, well, everybody's against them. And they're so marginalized, and they're so tired of everybody speaking out against their marginalized group. And they feel like they can't say anything, and this is a talking point that you used to get a lot on Alex Jones. I know Tucker Carlson talked about it a lot. Jesse Waters brings it up a lot on Fox News. Joe Rogan has had this shit brought up on his show. Straight white guys are not being absolutely shit on. They're not. If you're being shit on and you happen to be a straight white guy, it's not because you are a straight white guy. It's because of you. You're most likely behaving in a way where people are just done with your crap, and yeah, they're going to stand up to you and call you on your garbage. It's fair. Honestly, I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican or, young, old, gay, straight. I don't care what your status is in any way, shape, or form. White, black, I don't care. If you're coming with shit and somebody calls you on it, you probably deserve to be called on it. In the words of Xander Cage from Triple X, don't be a dick. Right? It's really that simple. Don't be an asshole. You don't have to worry about that. Don't play a victim if you're not really being a victim just because you started a fight. Don't be that guy who starts a fight and then gets punched in the face and runs to the cops immediately and says, well, this guy hit me. Well, yeah, but why did he hit you? What happened? Well, the bar has video, and they're going, well, yeah, this guy started the fight. He swung at him first, was shoving him over. He couldn't hit him to save his soul, and the other guy ended up, finally having enough and hit him one time, and the guy ran out of the bar and called you guys. So, I mean, that happens way more than you think. Don't be that person. If you can't deal with the consequences of your actions, don't do those things. Don't be an asshole. Do not be a prick. How about instead of if you can't deal with the consequences, just don't be a dick in the first place, and nobody has to worry about it. Just be a good human being. I know it's a lot to ask of some of you, but I think we can manage. I think we can get there together, right? Staying on topic, man. Stay on topic. Don't be that person who, for instance, there was a thing about real, this is just like late breaking kind of shit, which was Verizon's contract with the aviation administration is being canceled, and they're giving it this Elon Musk Starlink now, whatever. and somebody was like, "Well, do you think?" And the aviation, they've been needing updated systems forever. I'm like, well, Verizon's was their communication system. You're talking about their backline systems. Their computers, their radar systems, and all that stuff. Yeah, that needs to be updated, but that's not what Verizon's contract was. So you're conflating two issues. You're looking at a known issue that most people would agree with and saying, but this. But that's not what that contract is. That's a different portion of what goes into all of these systems. That goes into so it's important to try to understand what information is relevant to the subject matter to have that discussion. All right. Or the other day when I posted about if you have gay or trans members in your family, or if you have friends that are gay, and you're really nice to them, right? They're your friends or they're your family, and you're nice to them. But then you go and you vote for people who are doing awful things to those communities. They're taking away their right to vote, or they're they're not taking away their right to vote yet. Anyway, they are making it harder to some degree because they're invalidating some of their licenses and shit now. They're taking away their ability to get passports to some degree at this point in time. They're trying to make it so that they can't get married. They're trying to make it so that they can't serve in the service. They're trying to classify them all as mentally ill, which will have huge impacts on much of their life. But these are your friends and family. How can you be nice to them face to face and still empower the people who are devastating their lives in the background, marginalizing and removing their abilities to live the American dream, to pursue, life, liberty, and seek happiness in the way that makes them happy, and to really be free, to be officially recognized as American citizens with all the rights and freedoms that come with it. How can you be that person? And a guy on my list decided to comment, and he said, well, my son's a cop, and so I felt like I was supporting law enforcement with my vote, which was to me weird because as a Democrat and one who's followed a lot of legislation for a long time, beyond little catchphrases that get permeated through, the news media, the left has a storied history of one, protecting unions, which is what all police officers are for the most part in police unions, right? I don't personally know of any that are not. And two, we've supported the police for decades. I know right now, for the most part, it's the Democrats on my board who have been trying to barter for higher wages for our law enforcement locally. So it is not a political standpoint to back the Conservative Party specifically for law enforcement. It just isn't, and that doesn't even if it it's not. But and I don't want to say even if it were, because that would give you like room for insinuating that some people aren't. If you were to break it down to individuals and say some aren't, or some are for more for police on the conservative side, and that's what you're voting for, you're still empowering something very awful to gain what? Like what did they do during the last time Trump was president? What are they doing, or have they spoken about doing for police departments or officers during this administration? What have they spoken about that would lead you to say that you voted for that? Like it's not even on the same line. You're literally saying that you're willing to give up other people's freedoms and shit on people who are legitimate American citizens, grew up here. They're perfectly nice people. They're not criminals. They've done nothing wrong. They're just living life in a different way than you. And you're going to say, well, yeah, but I want to support the police. They're pretty supported, I think. I'm not saying that every American citizen is a nice person to police. They're just not. And unfortunately, it's the bad apples that fucking ruin it. It's the bad apple citizens and it's the bad apple cops that are ruining it for everybody, making the whole thing look like it's far worse than it really is. But you know, legislatively, yeah, you know, politically, they both support fucking law enforcement. So to say that you're trying to justify the removal of some people's rights because of that, and I'm not saying it's a party thing. I'm not saying that the party, the conservative party, wants to take away those rights. Please understand that I do not think that conservatives, as a general people, want to remove rights from, you know, trans people or gay people. I don't think that's true. I know gay people and trans people who are more conservative leaning politically, but they don't support a lot of the more extreme movements that have been in there lately, and for good reason. So it's really hard for a lot of those people right now because they either have to vote for people who they know are going to possibly do things that are going to be awful for them and have long term consequences, or they have to vote for people who they disagree with. There is no in between. And that's because right now we have so much extremism going on in the Republican Party. And that's the problem. That's really where the problem in this lies. Um, I don't have an issue with a lot of conservative politicians. I don't. There's a lot of conservative politicians that I'm absolutely chill with. I may disagree with some of their points, um, but I don't think that they're a terrible person. I don't think that they're evil, and I don't think that they're trying to do things that are un-American or anything like that. At that point, it's just a difference in policy, and that's a very different situation than what I think a lot of people like to try to break it down to. The difference between one side and another should never be saying that all of the other side are just inherently evil just because they're the other side. That's another problem that you see a lot in debate. People try to minimalize an argument and just boil it down to just if you're on this side, you're evil, you're a commie, and people are using these terms for both sides, so it's or all sides really. Um, so it's really awful because it's taken away people. A phrase I love, honestly, and it's kind of silly because of where I learned it was from Wayne's World. Yeah, I know, but it's a really brilliant line, and I honestly I thank God every day that they threw this one in there. But it's Kierkegaard. If you label me, you negate me, and the point of that was that if you take somebody's identity away, take everything that they say away, and you just look at them as just a label, um, Democrat, white, straight, um, man, woman, whatever the case might be. If you just take somebody and you reduce them to just that label, you completely negate who they are as a person and everything that they have to say. You disregard their existence as anything less than just that label. And that's just the worst thing you can really do, period. Like, that's not even just in debate. If you're going through life and you're just marginalizing anybody that way, if you're diminishing anybody that way, that's awful. Don't do that. Don't be that person. Um, it's ridiculous. And what you're really doing is robbing yourself of having amazing interactions with a lot more people. Um, I don't know about y'all, but I look forward to a lot of the interactions I get to have with people because, frustrating as some of them can be, it can be enlightening. And for better or worse, sometimes it's an enlightenment where I realize that maybe this person is somebody whose energy I don't mesh with, and I don't want that energy in my life. And so then I have to remove them from my life in whichever way that may be. A lot of times it's just the internet, so you can just block somebody or unfriend them or whatever the case may be. Um, but we have to do better. We have to try to listen to people and get to understand people where they come from and what they are. And we have to start really getting back to the facts. We don't have to agree on what the facts necessarily mean, but we got to stop trying to deny what the facts are. Right? Um, I would say for a good example recently, that was brought up was trans people in sports, specifically trans women joining women's sports, and should be trans girls joining girl sports because most people, when they're talking about it, they're talking about high school. There's the occasional instances beyond that, But for the most part, the examples that everyone loves to give is the high school ones because now they feel like they're defending young women from whatever male abuse that they are trying to insinuate is there, which isn't really. Um, but that's their point. They're trying to use somebody else as kind of this figurehead of oh they're victims. We're gonna paint them as victims in this regard. Let's not mention that we're doing all these things legislatively that are gonna hurt young women or women in general. But you know, for our purposes in this instance, we're gonna use them as victims of an evil lefty thing, where an occasional trans gal is going to play volleyball or something. Um, and we just can't let that broadly happen. Now, I brought up one. We have young women who join wrestling or football in some schools because there isn't women's teams for those. Right? There aren't men's teams for some other sports like volleyball. In most schools, softball. A lot of schools relegate that to just girls. I would have loved to have played volleyball. I liked volleyball. I thought volleyball was fun as shit. Um, but couldn't have been on a volleyball team in school because that was for girls. Uh, so uh, it seems weird, but here's my thought process on it: is that we are at a time when we have an opportunity in our society to look at athletics and the big flaws that we have with them, and how we decide who gets to play and how it's all divvied up and how it's made fair. And the reality is that we've really separated the sexes for so long that we firmly believe that some people have a distinct advantage just because of sex, and therefore, and if that were true, no girl would ever win a wrestling match. No girl would ever be successful in football. It's just not the case. You see it all the time that you have young women athletes in those sports who do well. Um, and I think it's time that we start looking at the potentials at the high school level, at least for a start, to start creating you know teams that are gender neutral, where you can have any gender in there, and then you don't have to worry about trans anything. You don't have to worry about anything. It's just whoever wants to play and can play well can play. Suffice it to say, maybe you say the teams have to be 50-50 in volleyball or something like that. You find ways to regulate it to some degree to have some balance and fairness to people who want to play. But the reality is that we're stuck in an archaic system when it comes to athletics. We really think that people just can't compete based on gender, and that's such a stupid discussion. And we can't look at professional athletes as the way, because professional athletes have been training for, sometimes decades. They've been training their body for those sports. So yeah, some of those guys are bigger. But for those of you who really don't pay enough attention to um, athletics and people who work out a lot, you can have guys who do the same workout as other people. They take the same supplements as other people, but their bodies will just never bulk up like other people's bodies bulk up, because that's just how their body's going to be. So insinuating that just because it's a guy, it's going to be so much more massive, completely incorrect. There are plenty of guys who can work out very hard, and they're going to be little skinny guys for the rest of their lives. They're going to be, fit little guys, but they're going to be littler, thinner guys for the rest of their life, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but they don't have an opportunity to pursue the athletics that they would necessarily really love to be a part of, because they're being outclassed by weight. So maybe having more teams where they could participate based on a mix of genders would be a possibility. I'm not saying that there's a easy answer, but I am saying that the way we have been doing it doesn't, one, that just because we've been doing it doesn't make it right, and two, that doesn't mean that that's where we have to keep doing it. There's always room to adapt, room to grow, room to change. And if we're going to put athletics at that high a pedestal for what should otherwise be, for the most part, an academic centered, period of your life, if we're going to have athletics be that big of a pivotal role for so many people, I don't understand why we need to remove it from anybody. I think everybody should have access to it in some way, shape, or form. And we shouldn't be telling them that they can't choose what sport they love just because. That's just me. But I think there's room to grow on things. And when we're in debates, we need to stay on topic. We need to not go in and just try to be a bully. Don't be a dick. Um, don't let your ego prevent you from dealing with facts. If somebody says something and you don't think it's a fact, go find information that either proves A, it's not a fact, or B, find out if it is a fact. And if it is a fact, let that influence you. Let that marinate and try to understand that fact. Try to relegate that information and see how that's going to influence how you perceive what you thought you understood or how you feel about something. Because it should. If your opinion is based on information and you didn't have all the information and now you have more information, it should influence how you feel about that. If you're unwilling to allow your opinion or your feelings to change, regardless of new information, of new facts, actual facts, then it's more about your pride and about your ego and about how you feel about something. A lot of times it's usually a bit of bigotry in there. Just saying, well, this is how I feel about it and I hate it and nothing's going to change my mind about whether or not I can hate it. Okay, well, nobody's asking you to feel comfortable with something you're not comfortable with. We may not think it's cool that you're not comfortable with it. We may not agree that it's okay for you to feel that way, but we can't change that you feel that way. And we shouldn't ask you to feel comfortable with it. Would I feel comfortable with somebody groping me in a bar? No. And nobody can make me feel comfortable with being groped in a bar. Just is how it is. Some other people may be comfortable with it. Me? Absolutely not. Nothing's going to change that. And nobody should ask me to feel comfortable with that. So nobody can make you feel emotionally comfortable with something you're not emotionally comfortable with. But we can ask you to consider the facts, the new information, and maybe it wasn't you being groped in a bar. Maybe they bumped into you from behind and it was just a complete accident. In which case you're like, well, I wasn't comfortable with it, but that wasn't what it was. So, I apologize. I was wrong. And we grow as people. We have to have that potential for growth. If we can't grow as people, if we can't accept when we're wrong, if we can't become better just because we want to, just remain right about all things, we think we're right about all things, then what's the point? What's the point of existing if you're already all knowing and you're correct about everything? Why aren't you just leading the world? That's the reality of it. Don't pretend for a moment that you know all things or understand all things. I don't understand all things. I don't know all things. I'm always going and looking things up. Even things I think I know, I have to go and verify before I talk about them a lot of times, because I'm like, I thought it was this, especially lately. I get with the brain fog and everything from the COVID. There's a lot of issues with that. So it's important to me to try to double check and verify things so that I'm not, speaking out of my butt or getting, a lot of things wrong on things. And if I am wrong, I want the opportunity to acknowledge that and to go, hey, I misspoke, or I was mistaken, or I misremembered, or I pulled something out of my butt thinking that I was right and I was wrong. Whatever the case may be, I need to have that opportunity to learn and grow from that as well. That's maturity, man. That's chill. As Eddie Izzard would say, chicks dig mature people. So, I threw the cat out the window and, I like my women like I like my coffee with spoons in them. So that's where I'm going to end it for tonight. You guys have a good night. If you liked something or felt like it connected with you in some way, hey, cool. If not, that's fine. If you felt called out, honestly, anytime that you're watching something and you feel called out, take that to heart. That's how we improve ourselves. When something feels like maybe it's you know prodding at who we are, at a flaw that we have, um, it should be okay to feel that way, and to but you should use that as a way to reflect on that and to maybe think, do I need to fix something about myself? Not as a reason for an attack on somebody else, right? Always pursue opportunities for personal growth. You can't help others to grow if you are not taking every opportunity to grow yourself and be a great example of that. Sound right? Sorry, I went on a little bit more. All right, have a good night, y'all.